What it is, everybody. My name is Torrance Green. This is my beautiful mother, Nia Green. She's here in Houston, Texas, visiting me from Horn Lake, Mississippi. And I had a few questions I wanted to ask her. So I told her we're gonna sit down in front of the camera and I'm gonna ask her some questions and she gonna answer them. These are questions kind of regarding my journey coming to Houston. My mother was the one that was providing for me while I first got out here, and I never asked her questions about this particular subject, and this is one way for me to honor my mother and tell her how much I am grateful for her sacrifice from 5 years ago. Do you have anything you want to say before we get started with the first question?
I'm glad to be here.
It's glad to have you here. I'm glad to have you here. She changed up her plans at the last minute, and I'm glad that God worked it out like that. So, the first question that I have for you is, how did you feel? Okay. I think I was a senior in high school, and you came in my room because you went to Northwest. And you really wanted me to go to Northwest Community College for auto repair. And I remember you came in my room and you handed me a big packet of all the information that the school had to offer for the automotive program. So how did you feel when I told you that I didn't want to go to Northwest and that I didn't want to stay home in Mississippi?
Well, initially, because of course, parents, we have our own ideas and our own thoughts of how maybe your future should go. When you're little, we kind of, you may tell us certain things, but we kind of have an idea or a thought, of maybe how that would go. And it's not that I did not want you to do what your heart's desire. I think initially it was just like Houston is kind of far away, and I just really wasn't. 9 hours far. Yeah, I just really wasn't sure about, you're my only son. So, I think for me in that time, I wasn't ready to let you go, because I don't know if you, of course, Nana had passed away in that January. So it was kind of like I was letting it go of a lot. So that was like, so now I gotta let him go. So that kind of was in that space, but I have never been that mother to want to hold you all back. And so even though it wasn't what my heart wanted, I knew that you needed to do what you needed to do on your own. So I was never going to ever stand in the way of that, because I didn't want you to be angry with me and then your life goes so...
I heard that. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah.
I originally moved to Houston right after I graduated high school to go to school at UTI for collision repair. And initially, I thought the school was in Nashville, Tennessee. Did you think that as well? I think I told everybody it was in Nashville.
I don't know. I thought it was always in Houston. I have no clue.
Well, I thought it was in, I guess I can answer this question because I thought it was in Nashville, and I didn't know until the day I had the interview for my school that it was actually in Houston. And they was like, I think Daddy was like, I thought you said it was in Nashville. And I was like, well, I thought it was too. And then he was like, the instructor of the interview was like, do you still want to come? And my dad was like, you still want to go? Yeah, I still want to go. I'm still going. I didn't care. I just didn't want to be back in Mississippi.
Tell them how you came to find out about UTI. Where did you find this information at?
A commercial, I think.
When? Like, what time of the day was this commercial on?
I don't even remember all of that.
Because I saw the commercial late night. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I think I asked you, I said, so you up late night watching commercials? This is how you end up in Houston? Because it's like, just, randomly, it was like, why does he want to go to Houston? So.
Yeah, but, I mean, I'm not the kind of person I wasn't big on grades in school. Yeah. I just knew I needed to pass. I knew college really wasn't the route I was going to take. I knew that for a very long time. So I was the kind of person in school, like, I would slack off all semester. I just knew not to come home with no F's. No F's or no D's. I was cool. So I was the kind of person I would slack off all semester, and then when it come down to our final few assignments, I would total them up and get the average of what I could make on each assignment to still pass the class with a decent grade. And if I could get a 0 and not turn some stuff in, that's the kind of person I was. I just didn't care because school wasn't that important to me. I'm very, very grateful for my schooling, don't get me wrong, but I hated it. I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, but I can see that. I knew that college wasn't like, that's why I suggested Northwest, because it was just a 2-year program.
Right.
Because I knew maybe 4 years you probably weren't going to be able to do. And we were just glad that you graduated, because you were a jokester, prankster, and we were just glad that you graduated.
Yeah, but y'all ain't really had no problems out of me in school. Like,
I mean, here and there.
There wasn't big problems,
big
though.
Problems, but I could
me
tell.
acting out a little bit.
We could tell that you did not like.
I'm a clown.
By the fact that you have to be at school at 8:15 and you get up at 8 o'clock.
And I was still on time, right?
Most of the time.
Oh yeah, you could only get like 7 tardies in school, 5 to 7, and I never met that quota. I never met that quota. I actually went online to search trade schools up because I know I didn't want to do math. I'm more of a hands-on guy. Most people that know me know I am a hands-on guy, and so I was like, I really don't want to do all the math, all the science. Just give me a trade, and I'm gonna be good with it. And plus, you told me you got to do something. You got to go to work, go to school, or go to the military. So I chose trade school. I chose work and school. But I said all that to say I didn't do much research about UTI. Like, it was the second school that I searched. It was another school that came up first. I was like, I don't like how this campus looked, but UTI's campus looked better, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go here. And so that's what I chose. Like, I didn't do much research about it, and 5 years later, it was a really, really good decision. It was a really, really good decision.
It has worked out.
Plus, the price of it wasn't that bad, so I was like, yeah, I'm finna do it. It's cheaper than college, so. I'm gonna paint a picture for you guys right now. You remember one day, I was outside the door. I had on a pair of gym shorts, had on a pair of jeans. My jeans were down at my ankles. And I was scrummaging, looking like a crackhead, scrummaging in my pockets for something that I had lost. Really, I was off of marijuana. I was real high. I had just got done smoking a lot of weed. I was real high, and I was looking for my house key to get into the house. Now, before she pulled up, I was out there for a good 30 minutes looking for my key.
He was not. That's how high he was. I watched him walk to the door, and I sat in the driveway. And I watched him, and I remember looking at him, and I was like, he's high. He's clearly high. Yes.
He's clearly high.
I remember that.
So how did you feel? Okay, so before I ask that, when we got in the house, she said, I'm going to ask you one question. And she said, are you smoking? Have you been smoking weed, or are you high? At first I said no, and then about 2 seconds later I said yes. So how did you feel when you found out I was smoking weed?
I mean, that did not shock me because, I mean, I grew up in the 90s. There were some things that I kind of expected you guys to maybe try out or, dibble in. I didn't have, I wasn't one of those parents that had expectations like, oh, my kids are never gonna, like, considering who their father was, because your father, from what his family said, he was a tyrant. He was into everything, and I used to just pray with God, I don't want to get back what he got to get back.
Right. I heard that
because he was a bad child, and I was particularly.
You was bad too.
I wasn't bad.
You had your days.
I had my days. I had my moments, but I came home on time. I did do things, and so, but mostly, once I got 18, it was mostly that, 16, 17, 18, that was, so I had my moments. So I didn't expect you all, and plus to our friends, I didn't expect you all to be perfect, just, I just wanted you all to make sure you stayed out of trouble. That was the main thing. Don't get any trouble, because, we're in DeSoto County, Mississippi, and so,
We just gonna leave that at that.
Yes.
We just gonna leave that at that. And then you told me, you was like, you didn't tell my dad. You was like, what did you say when you?
I said, this time I'm not gonna tell your dad. I said, but if you come home high again, you're gonna have to have that conversation with him.
Now, did you catch me coming home high after that?
I did not. I did not.
I hid it real well. I was still coming home high after that.
I did not.
Yeah.
No, I did not. Yeah. There was a couple times I suspected. I smelled.
Yeah.
I could smell some things.
But
you know.
Yeah, I covered my tracks real well when I was in the world.
Okay, we'll let you think that.
And then you was like, I think you said, don't like if your daddy find out something. And the day I had my interview to come to school here in Houston was the day my dad found out I was smoking weed. Mm-hmm. He pulled up on me in the driveway too. And I was in somebody else's car. I was driving the car. My friend was in the passenger seat. My dad comes, knocks on the window. He like, what you doing? I said, I'm smoking weed, Dad. Well, we was already high, and we were just bagging, like separate.
Divvying it out.
Right. We were dividing our portions. And he was like, come here, let me talk to you. So I let the dude, the weed, it was Reggie anyway. It wasn't nothing major. It was $5. And so he was just I left that with him. And me and my dad had a long talk in the backyard, and I started crying. Because even though me and my father's relationship wasn't the best, we still had a bond. We still had some certain kind of bond. Even though that bond was really only around cars, it was still a very, very tight-knit bond. It was like the kind of bond where I see what you're working on, I hand you a tool without you even asking me to hand you a tool. Like we used to work really well in that sense. So the thing that made me start crying, he was like, the whole world could have came and told me you was doing this, but I would have believed you. And I was just crying. I haven't forgot that to this day. That's still,
Well, he had a different type of expectation of you all, because that night, he was very, very shocked, and I was like, why? Like,
why?
Like, I mean, just to be honest, I mean, smoking weed was the least of the things that I, was worried about you all getting in trouble for, I'm just thankful that it was in the driveway and that no one else found you. I mean, and like I said, you did little things here and there, and so I was just glad, it wasn't anything major,
right?
But I mean, he was from the streets. I was shocked that he was so shocked, because I was like,
how was he laying in the bed that night?
He was laying in the bed like he was ready for burial, and I was just like, who died? Like, I had forgotten that Chelsea informed me. She let me know. TJ came through here crying. Daddy came through walking fast, and I believe he called him smoking weed, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That was her way of letting me know what had went down, and So yeah, he was very shocked. I have never been shocked by any of the things that any of you all did, because I expected, with teenagers, you all test and try the limits. Me and my sisters tested and tried our mother's limits. So it's like, you do things, and you do sometimes the most random, ignorant things. So I wasn't shocked by it. I just was like, just don't come up in here high like that. That was just.
I heard that.
That was the whole thing.
So when I finally came to Houston, what was it like when I wasn't, like, your first day getting back home and me not being in the house? Because I was the first one to, like, officially leave the house, even though Stormy was at college.
Mm-hmm.
She was right. But I was gone, and I was the furthest away.
It was different. It was an adjusting period. Cause like I said, you were my only son, and so then you were the other man in the house.
I heard that.
So a lot of things that I maybe depended on, if your dad wasn't around, then I depended on you, to help out with maybe the heavyweight or different things like that. So that took some adjusting, because if he wasn't there, it wasn't anybody else that I could depend on to take care of those things. But of course, I never wanted to put that weight on you, because I think you had even said you were going to go to, because you told me you were going to go to the Army. I'm going to go to the Army, and I'm going to take care of you and my sisters. And I told you, no, TJ, that's not your job. Like, I didn't.
I said that? I don't remember saying that.
You did.
Well, I'm taking care of y'all now. Huh?
You do. You have. You've been good at that. But I didn't. That's not a. But you're doing it because you freely want to.
Right. It's not like
because
a burden.
it's like that's your main goal. And I didn't want that to be your main goal, because your main goal, you were not going to have to take care of me and your sisters. And I get and I understand why at that time you wanted to.
Yeah.
But I was like, no. I wanted you to have your dream, to live your dream, because like I said, I didn't want you to be angry with me. I had seen some parents not let their children live their dream, because my whole thing was, even if you got to Houston and after a year you didn't like it, you can always come home.
Right.
But
I still think about that now. Like, I can still come home if I needed to.
Now,
I know.
Houston needs you.
I heard that.
But, but I didn't want to, and some of those kids never got that chance. And I seen some of those children become hellions in their parents' life. And I didn't want that. I never want to be, the one to hold my kids back. As much as it hurts my heart, I still know that you all are better if you at least try at your dreams. Because it's one thing to try at it and not succeed. It's another thing when a person tells you that you can't even try at it. So I wasn't going to do that. Definitely was not going to do that.
Now, what you just said, my brother always preaches about is like sowing and reaping. Mm-hmm. Now, reaping what you sow, he said reaping is what you sow is not bad as long as you're sowing good seeds. Mm-hmm. Now, in this case, even though you might have been really, really scared or mm-hmm. fearful or like whatever you were feeling in that moment, you wanted me really to do what you wanted me to do, but you still sowed a seed in faith. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to smother my child mm-hmm. because I don't want to reap the benefits I've seen of other children mm-hmm. Or of other parents reaping because of what they've done to their children exactly. or what they have not done to their children.
Exactly.
And so that's just a really, really good example of reaping what you're sowing. Like, it was a great seed that you sowed, and I'm very happy about that. I'm happy that you didn't try to force me to do it. I probably would have been rebellious anyway, and I was the kind I was gonna do what I did. Right.
Yeah, and then also too, I didn't want to project my fears onto you, and that's one thing. Your father was very good at really making sure you guys had no fear. I have fears. I have fears of heights, fears of water. You guys riding the tallest and biggest rides. And I've never because I don't want y'all to get on because I'm scared. And I've never, and it's been some rides I've got on with y'all, and some I would never get back on again with you all. But I never wanted to put that fear in you. And of course that fear was tested when the hurricane came. And
ooh, that wasn't even a question. Let's talk about that next.
Okay. That was a test for me because you were so far away.
Wow.
And because I'm a mama bear to my heart.
I heard
and
that.
I could not, I wanted you to be safe. Histories of hurricanes, it's like, they can be dangerous, and it's like he's there by himself. There's only a limited amount of people that you can talk to, and I'm so grateful for Chantel Norman, because when I got that text that she said, I have your baby, when I tell you that, I was like, okay, good. Because I was like, because I think I had even texted her, called her, and she said, well, he knows he can come here, and it's just, my thing was, is he gonna go there? Because I know that you're stubborn at times, but it's just like, I needed to know that you were safe.
We tried to evade the city, but that plan didn't work. We got flooded in, and so we just went back to the apartment, and we had to. They came back the next day, and it's a mandatory evacuation. You got to get out of here. My side of Houston really wasn't that bad. On the north side, it wasn't. Well, I was in Spring. It really, it wasn't that bad for me. I know on I-45 we tried to go to Dallas, and my friend, we saw the waters. They were kind of high, and they had the highway blocked off, but we still went. He was like, "Man, I'm finna go. We finna get to Dallas. We finna get up out of here." And so that didn't work. So we had to stay. I think that night we went back and stayed in a school. I slept on a school cafeteria that night. I thought it was very fun. It was a good experience.
Of course, you were 18.
Right.
You were 18. But meanwhile, I'm watching all the weather reports in Houston, and I'm just like,
I had a good time during the hurricane. I ain't gonna lie.
I understand for you that was, I know for you, because like I said, you have no fear. You're 18.
Yeah.
Like What do you have?
Never
much?
been caught up in no hurricane. We don't get hurricanes in Mississippi.
No, we don't. So you were just living your life. Meanwhile, I was like, I need for him to get to somewhere really, really safe, somewhere where I know that he's around good people. And Chantel she was that place, and so I'm grateful for her for that. She was my angel in that. You know, she already has my heart, but forever, because she made sure my baby was okay.
You hear that, Chantel? You got my mama's heart.
She does. She knows she has she knows she's my girl. That's my girl.
Yeah.
You know, I was really, really nervous during that time because, you know, it's one thing to pray and have no fear, but it's like, you know, when it's a situation you're so far away you can't really do anything about, that is really where your faith is tested, because there was not much that I could do, because I mean, of course we couldn't drive there because we probably wouldn't have been able to get into the city. It was flooded. So, you know, that's another thing that you're faced with. So you just have to pray. And, you know, and I was watching the news reports, and I was just watching, and I was praying, and I just was like, you know, out of all the places, this boy had to come to Houston, and and here we go. But, you know, God did what he did. He did what he promised. And, you know, I think that's when I started kind of a little bit knowing that, okay, God has you, you know.
That was 2 weeks. When I moved here, Hurricane Harvey hit 2 weeks after I got here in 2017.
No, it was soon. It was too fast for me, too quick for me.
I was just enjoying it because, like how you said, we had no fear. Like, I didn't even think twice about moving to Houston. It didn't scare me moving to a big city. Yeah. It didn't scare me starting over. Like, I never considered that until one day when I got my AT&T account. The man came to my apartment, and I think he was installing the Wi-Fi or something. And he said, I was telling him, he asking me about where I come from and everything, how old I was. I was like 18 at the time, or 19. And he was like, you a strong brother. He's like, you a strong man. And I saw the seriousness in his eyes. I had never thought about, like, it never scared me. I've always kind of been a risk taker. You know, it really wasn't a risk for me. It was like, no, I ain't got no other option. I know I'm not, because I knew when I was smoking weed and when I was hanging with a lot of guys I was hanging with, I knew that wasn't me. And I always knew I would stop smoking weed. I always knew that, like, I would find my niche of people. I would find my niche, because I used to like Elton John, still kind of like Elton John. And I remember one night, some of my friends liked Elton John too, and we were all getting high, and they say, hey, TJ, put on Rocket Man. I put on Rocket Man. Everybody, I'm a Rocket Man, burning out his fuse up here alone. I'm talking about, it's the middle of the night, we in the middle of nowhere, everybody smoking, everybody singing Rocket Man, and then once we got done, they said, hey, T, don't tell nobody else about this. You know, because they had to maintain their gangster status, you know what I'm saying, up in the school. We was pretty popular back up in the school, but they ain't want their brotherhood being tested. They didn't want nobody finding out they was listening to Rocket Man. And they never handed me the aux in the car. They would never hand me the aux, because I just always had different taste of music, and I was just always different, and I really didn't fit in with my friends. The people that was really for me, I ain't really want them because they was weird to me at the time, but nevertheless, I'm surrounded by the people that I was always meant to be surrounded by. And now I have another question for you, Mother.
Okay.
What were you feeling when my wheel flew off on the highway? So let me paint this picture for you guys again. I came to Houston on a Friday. My dad got me a car, and that's a whole nother story. He got me it was an 03 Maxima. I loved Maximas. It was clean, pearl white. Whole 9 yards, fully loaded. Let me stop. Anyway, he got me a car. He had given me the car like at least a year before, and it needed an engine in it, and he was supposed to be rebuilding the engine so I could have me a nice strong engine out here. And he knew that I was coming to Houston, but he still waited until the very last minute to start working on my car. Like the week of me coming to Houston, that's when he started working on the engine. And he wasn't able to drop me off here in Houston. He wasn't able because he was working on the car. And so Um, you dropped me off. You and my sisters, y'all dropped me off here on that Friday, and then on that Sunday, that's when we met up halfway. My dad gave me the car, and I was on my way back to Houston. Now, I was in Lufkin, Texas, about 2.5 hours away from Houston. And all of a sudden, my wheel flies off on the highway. This is my second day in Texas. I don't know nobody. It's nighttime, pitch black outside. My folks, they really like 4 hours away from me at this point, or I don't know. And you know, she can't get to her baby. I only had, my dad only gave me like $140. I only add that to my name. Mama really ain't had no money to give me. AAA, I called them, hey, how much would a tow truck be from Lufkin, Texas to Houston? Thousands of dollars, you already know, so that was out of the question. And nevertheless, during that time, I never had any fear. So what were you feeling?
Honestly, I was upset with your father because I felt like there was something he missed with the vehicle, something that, you know, because why is this tire, like, what did you miss? What you had all this time to make sure this car was great. What did you miss? I was upset with him because I was already upset because, you know, he didn't come with us for the move. I was supposed to use another vehicle, but that didn't come through, and so it ended up costing a little bit more than I expected to come. So it was a lot of different things and they were on him.
Yeah.
And I felt like he dropped the ball. And so I was, you know, I wasn't even having okay, he shouldn't go moment. This is not, I'm like, you've messed up. You know, what did you do? Like, why didn't you make sure, you know, things were okay? And so that's where I was at. I was more so upset with him because I felt like this was something that he could have prevented. Yeah. And so that's what I felt. And, you know, and of course I was concerned about you, but for some reason I just was like, you know, there's nothing I can do about it. The daytime comes, and I think it just all worked out.
It did.
And so you were able to find, I think, your tire and everything. And
no, I didn't find my tire.
Okay.
Like, I still ain't found it to this day. I went looking on the highway for it, and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
But what happened, and see, this is how I know God is real, because in experiences like this, it solidifies our faith and it strengthens our faith, and it's like a really core memory that we have that we never forget, where it's just one of those things where, like, you have to be there, like you have to experience God in order to develop your relationship with him, in order to strengthen your faith.
True.
And so that night I went looking for my wheel. I didn't find it. I called the police. Then I think my dad told me to call the police, so I called the police. And they came, they helped me look for the wheel, and the lug nuts were stripped. I think 1 or 2 lug nuts had, one of the studs were stripped. I think one of the studs had broke, and I had no jack. I had a spare tire, but I didn't have a jack. I didn't have any tools to get it right. And this is why anytime you buy a car, you need to go buy a 1.5 ton jack, because the jacks that come in cars now aren't, they will get the job done, but 1, they'll take you a lot longer, and 2, they're not as safe as a 1.5 ton jack. So you need some jumper cables, you need a 1.5 ton jack, and you need like a small little tool set just in case you have any breakdown on the side of the road. Anyway, back to the story. I didn't have any of that. And so all I had was, like, I think he gave me like $200, and I spent like some of that money on gas, and I spent some of it on windshield wipers, and I think I bought some detailing supplies too, because I'm gonna clean my car up when I get back. So I had like $140 left, and I didn't have no $1,000-some to get back to Houston. Now, he put a bad battery in my car as well, and I had to jump it with some jumper cables and a battery jumper just to get my car running for like the first 3 months I was here, because I didn't have a battery. I didn't have any money to get a battery. And so I called a tow truck, and they told me to a motel, and the motel was like $45. Now, in the morning, I woke up, I look across the street, I see an AutoZone, and so I said, okay, God, okay. I went over there and I got like the lug nuts for the wheel. Even though they were stripped, I knew that I could still put them on there, and I knew I would just have to replace the studs when I got back.
Yeah.
And then there was some men in a van. They looked like they did some kind of work, and I asked them, hey, do you guys have a jack? I need to put my wheel on. They had the jack, they had everything that I needed to get going. And it's just like God positioned them so that I could get back. Because I started school the next day. Actually, I started school on that Monday. It was a Sunday night. I started school on that Monday, and I had to miss school because of that. But it was kind of funny because this was my third day knowing all of my roommates in my apartment. And they was like, man, he said he was going to get his car. He was supposed to be back.
Yeah.
And when I got back, I said, boy, y'all ain't going to believe what happened to me. And they said, it was like, you just come back with the wildest story ever. Like, come on, man. But it's just like in moments like that where you know that God is real, because the car could have flipped. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been somebody out there on the highway. Somebody could have been driving on the opposite side of the highway and the wheel hit them, killed them.
Yeah.
Nobody was injured.
Yeah.
I wasn't injured. My car had a couple damages, but at the end,
okay.
right,
Yeah,
I ended up fixing it, and I ended up buying a new wheel. And at the end of the day, it was okay.
Yeah.
But just God is real, man. If you don't believe in him, I strongly encourage you to seek him. You will find him. I promise you that.
Surely will.
I promise you that.
Yes.
See, your heart got to be right though, because if your heart ain't right,
Yeah.
you ain't finding nothing. He said, seek him and you'll find him. You got to seek him with a pure heart. You ain't gonna find him if you looking at in the wrong places. Now, this is the very last question I have for you. How are you managing taking care of the bills at home while still making sure I had a roof over my head here in Texas?
Well, I mean, I just managed it out. I was like, this is what he's gonna do. This is what he wants to do, and so and I only really did it for a few months.
Like 5 months, yeah.
Yeah, because you shifted in what you were gonna do. But I just was like, okay, this is what he wants to do. I was blessed with a job, with a position to where I was making the money to where I was able to handle what I needed to handle. And I worked extra hours or whatever, and I think then I had gotten a raise, and so God really just blessed and made a way to where I was able to handle what was needed on your end, as well as what was on the other end. So, and I just did it. I just did it without question, without no discussion. I just did it. I just did it because it needed to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is the last thing that I'll say, and then we'll end this. So my mom and dad were married at the time when I was coming to school. And I wrote this in a poem. I said, I have an absent father who lives in the home. So my father was there. He wasn't there financially. He wasn't really there emotionally, and he was sort of there physically. But nevertheless, he lived in the home. And my parents were still married when she was like footing the bill for me to live in Houston. And I know we used to go to a mega church back in Memphis, Tennessee, and we were really likable people. Like, a lot of people wanted to be next to us. A lot of people loved us. A lot of people thought we were in a place that we really weren't. And it was not because of anything me or my mom or my sisters was doing. It's because of the front that my father had unfortunately put on for the world to see. But underneath that, we had no hot water at home. We had no lights. We had no cars that were registered in our name. We were driving all of his customers' cars, and you got to worry about, man, I'm riding his customer car. What if we pull up to each other at the red light? Hey man, that's my car. Nevertheless, senior year, I had I had a lot of fun. Like, I drove a different car every day. It was still fun. Then, by now looking back, that was a very, very, like, I don't even know how to put it into words. It was not that really wasn't safe. That wasn't why. It was a whole lot of things like that wasn't. It wasn't acceptable. But nevertheless, God still protected us in all of that. So I said all of that to say, don't ever judge a book by its cover.
True.
Because we had boats. My dad had a Bentley, a Range Rover, Mercedes, jet skis. We had a nice house. Nevertheless, the mortgage on the house was never getting paid. Everybody else outside the house was getting taken care of, but the family was real neglected. So on the outside, everything was perfect. Everything was perfect, but on the inside, it was not like that. So don't ever judge a book by its cover, because don't ever say, I want that marriage. I want to be like them. You never know what they had to do to get that, or what they're doing to keep that. You know, because looks can be deceiving, and I need to know about your heart before I judge you based on your looks.
Yes.
So that's just the last thing I wanted to leave you guys with. Anything you wanted to say?
No, I just want to tell you that I am proud of you. And that's one of the things, all the things that you just mentioned here, this little last bit, is that, that's one of the things, even before leaving the marriage, I really did a lot of repairing, of trying to get us lined up and getting you all stability. That's one of the reasons why I did make sure that I paid. Because some things, I'm like, you all were put in positions that you didn't need to be put in, and I was going to be sure that you all had the best chance at a bright future. I knew what God was telling me, and I knew where he was leading me, and I just had to continue to walk that out. But I just really wanted you all to have the best future, and and sometimes as parents, I knew what situation I was in. I was never in denial. It may be nothing that I talked to anybody else about. I was in a place where I was believing God until God pretty much told me not to pray about it anymore, that I'm freeing you. So, don't judge a book by its cover. And also, not everybody is not worth saving or not worth working it out for. Because, sometimes in relationships, some people may feel like they're not going to put up with anything. Some people are worth fighting it out with and struggling it and doing, but it does. That's right. I was going to say that it takes both people, and you have to have both of you all have to be willing to be trying to attain the same goal. If you're not both working at the same goal, then it's useless to be fighting, one person fighting and the other person not wanting to fight. And so, but that's the main thing, is that I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of the man that you are becoming, because you have become your own person, and you do take care of me and your sisters, but it's not an obligation, and you've done so much for us, and we are forever grateful. And as a mother, looking back, and of course knowing what I know, I would still, even with a hurt heart or whatever, I would still make sure that you got to Houston and that you had everything that you needed, and that while you were building for you, that you were taken care of. And so it's, because that's my ultimate goal, is that you and your sisters have the brightest future, and that you all, are in position to take care of yourself. And see, now you're in a position to take care of yourself. Your sisters are on their way to that. Yeah. And so, and that's my highest hope, my biggest prayer as a parent, and even now as I'm with this empty nesting, and all of you all are making your way on out. It's been a joy, and it's been a little heartbreak, because it's like they're not my little babies anymore. Yeah. But I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your sisters, and I'm very proud of the man that you're working so hard to become, and that that you're putting in the work, and you are. I think you're going farther than even my mind thought. But this was a prayer that I always pray. One of my favorite things is I always pray that God goes before us, make every rough place smooth and every crooked place straight. And I think that he has held up his end of the bargain, and I have no regrets in it all, and I'm thankful. Yeah. I'm thankful.
Well, I'm very thankful for you as well, Mother, because I know I wouldn't be here without your sacrifice. And so I really can't thank you enough for that, and I really honor you. And as we're approaching Mother's Day, I felt like this would be an appropriate way for me to honor her and just to tell her thank you and give her roses, because this woman she's been through a lot, you know. So any men out there who's coming at my mama, you better come correct. Any man that's in her inbox, you come correct, because she ain't taking none of that. For real, any man on the streets, at the gas, wherever you see her at, cause she gonna be looking like she looking. So you just come correct, all right? Because she ain't no silly woman. She not finna be your mother. She not finna do none of that. she not finna do none of that.
Okay, so this is turned into something else.
No, I just had to let them busters know, man. This ain't the one. This ain't the one to play with, man. You talking about? I wasn't no street boy, but I get street for my mama. Throw them deuces up. But nevertheless, I love you, mama.